Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited. I'm Nicola Barreto. Let's take a look at the headlines. Prime Minister gives the assurance that government remains focused on leading the way forward. Foreign Affairs and Communications Senator Nicole Dyer-Griffith assures government's commitment to press freedom. In sport, Caledonia AIA got the best of military men. And 74-year-old Victor Dell proudly receives keys from Housing and Environment Minister. Thank you for joining us. To our top story, Prime Minister the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessor has given the assurance that her government remains focused on leading the way forward. The Prime Minister was speaking to reporters following a special cabinet meeting where she noted that discussions held were framed around the government's entry into a third year in office. Kimberly Ramkalawan has the story.
Assurances that government remains committed to its agenda aimed at serving the people. That's according to Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessor, who addressed reporters following a special cabinet meeting, called to assess the way forward as her government moves into its third year in office.
Basically, the purpose of the meeting was for us to assess where we are on the eve of our second anniversary as a government and to discuss the way forward for our third year in office and in government. We concentrated on delivery and more delivery, strategies for effecting a greater implementation of decisions with respect to delivering to communities, delivering to our citizens in our country.
She noted that the issues of collective responsibility and the legislative agenda were highlighted.
The issue of collective responsibility, and every cabinet minister present has affirmed their commitment to collective responsibility as a cabinet and for taking the agenda of the government forward. The third year of our government is always a very important year. It is a midpoint, it's halfway point, a midterm, and therefore it's a very vital year, which is seen by some as being a make or break year. So we've spent quite some time doing it, and the discussions have been very cordial. I'm very proud of the level of maturity and the wisdom in the discussions we've been holding on the part of each of the ministers present.
Prime Minister Persad-Bissessor said government continues to engage in talks aimed at reducing crime, as well as taking a more active position on key legislation that would enable better living for citizens. The Prime Minister has also assured that her ministers have reaffirmed their commitment to consensus building. Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
Foreign Affairs and Communications Senator Nicole Dyer-Griffith is assuring that government is committed to support press freedom. She was speaking at a press conference in light of the commemoration of World Press Freedom Day. Verna Barath has the story.
Government identifies the critical role that the press plays in the progress of this country on its way forward. The sentiments expressed by Minister in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Communications, Senator Nicole Dyer-Griffith, who was speaking at a press conference in commemoration of World Press Freedom Day.
For us in the government, we continue to abide by our very strong position that press freedom and the responsible and sophisticated media represent the very thread that holds any strong democracy together. Press freedom is one of the pillars upon which a growing nation must root its stability. Indeed, the backbone of any democracy is an independent, professional, and responsible media.
Mrs. Dyer-Griffith adds that the press plays a key role in governance as it serves to present facts, uncover misconduct, and facilitate people's collective actions for the common good of all citizens.
Their role, amongst other things, is to inform, evaluate scenarios, and stimulate debate. The media occupy a critical place in the governance process. A vital part is its role as gatekeeper, disseminating critical messages to the public and highlighting issues, concerns, and initiatives.
She says, however, that while a significant amount of power is allotted to the press, there should be some level of balance as well.
In order for democracy to flourish, it is vital that citizens have various sources of information and access to proper forums for open and fair debate. The media, therefore, play a critical role in stimulating debate about important issues of the day, presenting facts and reporting news, uncovering misconduct, and providing a vehicle for diverse perspectives. It must be recognized that in today's information proliferated environment, therefore, the media has considerable power, and the exercise of this power needs to be balanced with a measure of accountability to the public.
Senator Nicole Dyer Griffith says this country has much to be proud of as it celebrates many years of press freedom. She is also assuring that government continues to be committed to press freedom, but reminds persons to demonstrate responsibility in expressing this freedom.
We in Trinidad and Tobago have a significant amount of media history, one that brilliantly articulates how a nation can develop alongside an emergent national media in a symbiotic relationship. Our oldest newspaper will celebrate a century of existence in the next 5 years, and with its own colorful and very animated history of growth, our nation can today take pride in the sacred place that constitutionally protected press freedom occupies.
Veena Bharath, News 4.
News 4 continues after the break. Stay with us.
Before 2007, what we had existing in the Trinidad and Tobago Police was a manual system where the information were placed in books and ledgers. With the introduction of CAPA, all information now is being placed on computers.
You will see how we have been redeployed so more of us can take to the streets on 2 legs and 4 legs, on 2 wheels and 4 wheels, on land and in the air, with the aim of not only fighting crime, but working to prevent crime before it happens.
The initiative itself is focusing on our core services, that being responding to calls for service from the public and being out in the community patrolling to ensure that there is a high level of safety and security within the communities, within the neighborhoods that our officers are patrolling in.
Adults aren't the only ones who beat up on kids. Sometimes kids beat up on kids.
Every child has the right to be protected from violence, abuse, and neglect.
Because I shouldn't be afraid to go to school or play with my friends.
Because no child should be hurt by adults or by other children.
Because safety is my right. Stop the bullying.
Unite for children!
Welcome back. As this country renews its relations with Canada 50 years after its first signing, both nations take the time to look back at the contribution each has made on their respective nations. The sentiments were exchanged during the hosting of a dinner held in honor of the visiting guests. Kimberly Ramkalawan reports.
President George Maxwell Richards is calling for a continued deepening in bilateral relations with Canada. The call comes as Canadian Governor-General David Johnston visits these shores, and the signing of 2 new agreements was sanctioned between the Canadian government and Trinidad and Tobago.
We must continue to work together for the benefit of our 2 countries, our Western Hemispheric region, and the world beyond. We look to Canada's support in consolidating our place as a world changer as we continue to lend our support to you as far as lies within us.
In addressing the dinner in which His Excellency hosted in honor of the visiting Governor-General, President Maxwell Richards noted that Canada's relations with TNT has left an indelible mark on their society and commended citizens for doing so.
Let me emphasize the important contribution this country's diaspora makes to Canada. Our diversity is our greatest strength, and Canada is quite simply a better country for the presence of people from Trinidad and Tobago. And I believe the same can be said of Canadians living here who actively contribute to the social, economic, and cultural life of your country. The vitality of our respective expatriate communities speaks well of our ability to live and work together.
However, the President also remarked that while this was so, the culture exchange went both ways.
Our relations have expanded in many areas, not least in that of trade, and many of us will agree that quite apart from anything else, Canadian salted cod has held its place as a most popular commodity in Trinidad and Tobago. Apart from bilateral relations, our respective representatives have collaborated closely in several multilateral fora where we have shared common understandings. Our people connections remain strong. Through, inter alia, our many unpaid and unsung nationals who have made Canada their home and have introduced in an abiding way many aspects of Trinidad and Tobago culture.
Guests present at the dinner included several government ministers and distinguished nationals of this country, alongside members of the visiting delegation. Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
Parents are being asked to take a more proactive role in grooming their children's behavior. The call comes from the Minister in the Ministry of Education, Clifton Dekoto. His comments came as students across the nation get set to sit the secondary entrance assessment exam.
With 1 week left before students write the secondary entrance assessment exam, parents are being urged to be more responsible and supportive towards their children. Speaking at the presentation ceremony held by NGO and Toto, where students walked away with stationery kits in preparation for their upcoming May examinations, Minister in the Ministry of Education Clifton Dekoto called on parents to lead the way, as children often imitated their behavior.
We are asking you parents, please be responsible. Respect the position you have. Respect the younger ones. Do not sit down, as has been brought to our attention, and look at some of those porns with the children. Do not use obscene language in the presence of your child. And we are trying at the ministry to get some of those things like etiquette and protocol. They spoke in terms about it. Good morning, good evening.
Michael Blackman and Toto's co-founder and vice president said the presentation was as a result of his family's given to students of his son's class when he sat the exam 5 years ago.
The idea was born one afternoon or midday, and by the next day I think we had a photo shoot with 35 schools. The teachers were very appreciative, and they came and they asked, what can you now do for us during the 6-week period when the children are waiting for results? And even though they were mandated by the ministry to do certain things, it somehow, maybe they sense in their bones that there was something more we could do. And they were quite right. We were challenged, and right away we put our heads together, and we came up with what we now call Bridging the Gap.
Social Development Minister Dr. Glenn Ramadasing commended the initiative for its direct impact on the lives of students.
When you want to have a future impact, you deal with children. Because in 10 to 15 years' time, they will be the pioneers of our own destiny. They will be the leaders in industry. They will be the leaders in art, in commerce, in finance, in medicine, and in law. Because out of that youth, that energy, that excitement will come the ideas that will run the society.
NTOTO is a non-governmental organization that has been reaching out to thousands of children nationwide for the past 5 years. Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
Wayne Cunningham has a sport report right after the break.
The Civilian Conservation Corps, CCC, now recruiting candidates for its upcoming cycle. Join our training program, military-led, national in scope.
Conserving, disaster response training, flora and fauna preserving, and life skill training. If you want to do better, change your life over. Civilian Conservation Corps has opened doors. You like plumbing? You like welding?
Call us now at 625-4CCC. That's 625-4222. Or contact us at the CCC office in your region. For further information, check us out on Facebook. Search for Civilian Conservation Corps. The Civilian Conservation Corps, getting youth ready for life.
The TT Pro League Lucozade Gold Shield final between the Defence Force and Caledonia AIA was described as the most entertaining football game for the season. The team from Morvar Laventille got the better of the military men, but as you'll see in this Wayne Cunningham recap, it was no pushover.
When News 4 Sports interviewed Kareem Joseph 2 days before the Gold Shield final, the star wingback of Caledonia AIA was confident that his team will get the better of the Defence Force when they met in their second cup final for the season. He got his team off to the perfect start with this penalty after Devon Jostling was upended, according to referee Michael Raghunath. Going back to the pre-game interviews, Richard Roy, star striker for the Army, was determined to reverse the result of the FA Trophy final. He personally went about trying to achieve that mission with a spectacular header. Roy getting between Radanfa Abubakar and Kareem Joseph to make it 1-1. That was the score at half-time. In the second half, Caledonia showed they had a big man of their own. National under-23 forward Jamal Gay with a deft header to make it 2-1. Gay, in a crowd of soldiers, effecting a perfect glance of the head to beat Kevin Graham. Two minutes later, it was 3-1 Cali. The build-up was a thing of beauty as Mackenzie Lewis crosses well for Walter Moore to score. Moore checking his stride to meet the ball at the perfect point to put Cali in the driver's seat. The Defence Force went into full attack mode, but were unable to breach the AIA defences, marshaled by Abubakar and Nuru Abdullah Muhammad. Caledonia AIA taking the gold shield 3-1. Along with the football, there was an attractive door prize of an all-expenses-paid trip to the UK to watch an English Premier League match. Carenage resident Ricardo Theodore was the lucky winner, and he received his prize from the Honourable Anil Roberts, Minister of Sport. Next up, the Pro Bowl. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
More news after the break.
Carjacking has become very prevalent in recent times. Certain makes of vehicles are more preferred targets for criminals. When approaching intersections or junctions, ensure that all doors are locked and windows are wound up if possible. Remember, crime prevention is everyone's business. A message from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
Reporting from communities across the country, people are calling Nalis Libraries their library. Tell me, why is Nalis your library?
My library is where I can have fun learning.
My library is helping me earn better grades with online research resources.
My library is my gateway to the world of information.
My library is providing access to the differently able. As a visually impaired person, I can envision limitless possibilities.
My library is making my world truly worldwide with free internet access.
My library is helping me keep an eye on my health with access to the virtual health library via the Nalis website.
Nalis is my library.
Thank you for staying with us. On Wednesday, 74-year-old Victor Dell and his family received keys to their Exchange Couver property some 45 years after filing an application for a home. More in this story.
It's been over 40 years since Victor Dell applied for a government house. Today, Mr. Dell, now a pensioner, the father of two and a husband, finally received the keys to a Housing Development Corporation HDC home in Couver. On hand for the presentation of keys was Housing Minister Dr. the Honorable Rudal Munilal, who also shared the first meal in the new home. The minister took the opportunity to commend Mr. Dell for his resilience and patience in waiting for a home.
I reflected that Mr. Dell was there waiting quietly, silently, and he was not known to the national community. He never went with a placard anywhere. He never went and abused the HDC staff anywhere. He waited and he waited, and this is an enormous journey signifying, his commitment and tenacity, resilience, and really is an example not only of applicants for government services, but is an example of a really great citizen of Trinidad and Tobago.
Mr. Dell, who is 74 years old, expressed his gratitude in finally getting his home.
I feel quite happy. I will trust in the Lord, and I'll see that the Lord always for people who trust in Him.
While hundreds of applicants continued to await keys to new homes, Minister Munilal urged them to take a page from Mr. Dell's story of endurance.
I would like, by extension, to ask every applicant to the HDC, 129,000 people, that if you could just take a leaf from the book of Mr. Dell and demonstrate the patience, demonstrate, that ability to, to show enormous tenacity and courage. Notwithstanding things don't work out now, but they will. And this is the hope that the HDC brings to Trinidad and Tobago, and Mr. Dell personifies that hope of the HDC.
The minister noted that the HDC had distributed homes to over 20% of the applicants who had applied more than 15 years ago.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of the News 4 Report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited. I'm Nicola Barreto. Thank you for joining us.